It's kind of a testament to just how well The Haunting of Villa Diodati was doing in its first half that I kinda had the wind knocked out my sails a little bit when the series arc showed up again and the episode started doing finale baiting. Nostalgia and series finale baiting have kind of been the saving grace of Series 12, and it's what's kept me watching, engaged, and actually making my He Who Moans videos in a much more timely fashion than usual. So this episode must have been doing something right in the first place for me to be a bit put out by that. The Lone Cyberman doesn't ruin it or anything, far from it. It's actually tied into the plot very well, bear with me. But the only reason I make that point is that I was surprised to find myself enjoying the first half quite a lot, because I was highly skeptical of it going in. Okay, so we're doing a bog standard haunted house type run around, and the Doctor's going to stumble across some sci-fi explanation for the seemingly supernatural events going on, a la Stones of Blood. But Stuart, twist! The incidental characters are Mary Shelley and Lord Byron, and this is actually the night that inspired Mary Shelley to write Frankenstein, which is an idea that Big Finish already did quite a long time ago. That was the reason for my skepticism going in, because I have already seen this done before, and it was done very well, so I was expecting to be underwhelmed by comparison. That, and while yes, I agree that the story of how Mary Shelley came to write Frankenstein is a powerful one, but since it has been done before, it got me thinking that there are other powerful stories behind classic Gothic literature that we could be exploring instead of just doing this one again. Like how Robert Louis Stevenson burnt the first draft of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde because his wife hated it, and then he rewrote the whole thing from scratch. Maybe we could have an episode about the cursed first draft of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde or something. Although yes, it does make sense to bring a Cyberman to the house where Mary Shelley was inspired to write Frankenstein, and suggest that the Cyberman was what inspired Frankenstein, cause, you know, they are both engineered carcasses of humans. So drawing that parallel does make sense. You know, kind of exactly like in that incredibly famous and really bloody good Big Finish play that they did several years ago, and alright, I'll let this go. I must stress here that I'm not pissed at this episode for any reasons of canon crossing, and I'd raise my eyebrows if people were. Just think of it like a human nature situation. The same basic thing has been chucked up on screen for us. Although this episode is not openly an adaptation of a bit of expanded universe media like Human Nature was, of course, it just has some of the core elements. That, and I didn't think it was anywhere near as good as Silver Turk, but it did enough to combat my skepticism of it going in for me to come out the other side calling it pretty good on the whole. The first half's a fun, clever, creepy little haunted house type run around as the Doctor and companions and incidental characters get separated and trapped in looping sections of house. I particularly enjoyed this moment where the Doctor communicates with Graham via the fireplace. It's a well-paced and atmospheric little piece that keeps you guessing, and it could go down all manner of different routes. I was expecting it to turn out that the house is a TARDIS or something. Sure, there's nothing original about it, but I am a sucker for a haunted house story, and the crew behind this one have thrown everything at it. I just love the set, the lighting, the atmosphere. The house reminds me a lot of the house from The Others, which is easily one of the most underrated horror movies ever made in my opinion. This thing looks absolutely gorgeous, and the Cyberman itself doubly so. I must stress that the wind was only momentarily knocked out of my sails when the lone Cyberman showed up and it started doing series finale baiting, and that is very half-hearted criticism, because it only took me out of the episode for the second that I was reminded of it. Because the lone Cyberman itself is kinda fucking incredible in this. The design of this thing is completely terrifying. Just the rust and the lighting and its distorted, menacing voice just makes it feel so intimidating that pretty much everything else going on in the episode just stops mattering whenever it's on screen. The lone Cyberman is almost done too well. It dominates everything else in the episode, so you kind of forget about Byron and Mary and Percy Shelley, and not to say they're bad, but they don't make as much of an impact by comparison. Maybe it didn't even have to be Shelley and Byron. Maybe this could have just been a group of randomers from the 1800s being terrorised by a lone Cyberman in a creepy mansion at night. Because let's face it, the thematic link between Frankenstein and a Cyberman has been done really well elsewhere, and I can't be the only one who totally forgot about said thematic link as the Cyberman was making its demands. This is not to say that Byron and Mary Shelley aren't done really well, of course, because they are. They don't feel like caricatures at all, they feel like actual people. I particularly enjoyed this bit where the Doctor's about to introduce the companions to Shelley and Byron.
Witness some of the most enlightened minds of a generation.
What would you all care to drink?
You know, that's a pretty good reversal gag. Would have been funnier, of course, if she'd opened the door and found them all fucking in a pile on the floor. I was having such a good time with this episode that it didn't even occur to me until the credits started rolling that, wait, so how does Jack know about the lone Cyberman? He wasn't anywhere near this episode. He just seems to have been told to pass on this piece of information, and said piece of information is then used to heighten the tension in this episode and give it some stakes. It's kind of interesting that they've set up this dilemma where Percy Shelley shouldn't die here because he's not supposed to, and history will change, possibly for the worse if he does. And so the Doctor's stuck in this place where she has to disobey Jack's warning and thereby create a much worse future. It is quite a clever dilemma, although the way this was seeded back in Fugitive of the Judoon was incredibly contrived. I do actually like The Haunting of Villa Diodati quite a bit. It's another one that reminds me of Utopia. It's chucking a series finale setup into a story that looked like it was going to be standalone, but the base story that the series finale baiting's been built upon was pretty solid in the first place. A shit ton more solid than the one in Fugitive of the Judoon. The episode's not just working on the basis of, keep watching and we're going to tease you about what we're going to do in the future some more. It's more substantial than Fugitive of the Judoon, and it's not totally reliant on how the series gets concluded. This is how you do it.